Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is Jeff, and I'm the founder of TheCyberWild Security Solutions. Hey, it's really nice to meet everyone today, and thank you for joining my webinar. Really excited to jump into some cybersecurity essentials. So we're going to talk about how to reduce the risk of cybersecurity threats without spending a fortune. So a little housekeeping before we get started. So please mute your phones and other distracting devices. And you will need a pen and paper. And please hold all questions until the Q&A at the end. So here's how we're going to know if this webinar or my products or services are for you. You are the healthcare organization looking to improve your cybersecurity resilience. You are an executive, business owner, or leader in healthcare aiming to implement the best practices for compliance. You are struggling with phishing emails. You are concerned about how you would respond to a ransomware attack. If any of these resonate with you, then you're in the right place. So keep listening. Let me tell you guys something really funny that happened to me back in the year 2000 when I was the IT manager at a small college in South Carolina. One day, everyone started getting this random email with the subject line, "I love you." Now, what would you do if you received an email that said, "I love you"? You'd probably think, oh boy, somebody really, really, really loves me. But now if it were me and I received an email like that, I'd probably be saying, I'd double check to make sure it's not just my computer falling for me after all those late nights we've spent together. But anyway, seriously, however, people's innate curiosity can sometimes lead to complications. As you can see in this particular email, and this is actually the copy of the real email that we saw back in the year 2000. The text, kindly check the attached love letter coming from me. And then you look below and you see this attachment. And well, this attachment was not a very good thing. In fact, it was a very naughty attachment. It was actually a virus, appropriately titled the "I love you" virus. And this is what happens. It starts out as one email starts going to one person. The person clicks on the love letter, which launches a small script that opens that person's contact list and then sends an email out to everyone on that contact list. And then everyone that's on the list receives the email, and so it escalates until many messages are created that no one could receive or send any email because, well, the server had crashed. So as you can see, and as you can imagine, cybersecurity concerns came into major focus for me that day. And that's where my journey into the cyber wild began. So fast forward 20 years and several cybersecurity certificates later, and as a cybersecurity solutions delivery leader at Deloitte, I provided advisory services to Fortune 50 clients and government entities. And then I had an epiphany. Organizations such as smaller hospitals and medical clinics, colleges, nonprofits, small businesses, hey, they all need the same level of protection that Fortune 50 clients and government entities need. They need the same amount of, they face the same threats and sometimes even more. Yet they often don't have the resources to effectively protect their environments against intentional and unintentional cyber risk. So now I help small enterprises reduce the risk of cyber threats affordably by offering comprehensive cybersecurity solutions tailored to their company culture. So this is what we'll cover today. First, we'll talk about why smaller organizations are more likely to be targeted with cyber attacks more so than large enterprises. We'll talk about how to fortify your digital environment without having to become a cyber expert. And finally, we'll discuss how to reduce the risk of cybersecurity threats without disrupting your daily operations. So let's get into this. So why are smaller organizations more likely to be targeted with cyber attacks than large enterprises? Well, contrary to what many people assume, they are more likely to be targeted with ransomware than the Fortune 500 enterprises, and there are several reasons for this. The first is that they do think they're too obscure, they think they're too small, and that they really underestimate the value of their data. For example, take the case of in 2019 when hackers demanded a ransom from patients after breaching this clinic in Florida. The clinic was run by Dr. Richard Davis, and they demanded that he pay a ransom, and then they demanded patients of the provider pay a ransom to prevent the release of their personal information following the clinic's breach. The hackers potentially stole the personally identifiable information of 3,500 patients, former and current patients. And the doctor had to send a letter to his patients apologizing for the breach, and his reputation at that point was very much tarnished. Another item that is very critical and a limitation is that you very often don't have a security team that's built into your organization. You may have an IT staff. They may have many hats that they wear. They may be doing IT work one day, web technology one day, maybe your ERM system the next, just different tools. I mean, they probably are spread thin, but you don't have anyone that's dedicated to doing the cybersecurity work that's required to fortify your networks. There's also limited funding for security, and often security is an afterthought. And of course, sometimes you have outdated technology. I remember one case where I was working for a client and we were doing an asset scan and discovered several Windows 2000 servers within their network that no one had any type of asset identification on them, but they were in some type of a chiropractic unit that there was no record of it, but somehow they showed up on the network. Windows 2000, and this was not the year 2001. Okay, they were well uh, out of license. I mean, out of support, natural support, and but probably not as out of support as this gentleman with the old green screen terminal here. That he's not very happy with it on the picture. But guess what the biggest weakness is? The biggest weakness of all organizations, believe it or not, is the lack of proper cybersecurity awareness training. Security awareness training. Matter of fact, a friend of mine who's the CISO, that's Chief Information Security Officer of a global retail chain, told me yesterday during a group chat that he considers the security awareness training that his company subscribes to be the best bang for the buck for his cyber budget. So now we're going to talk about, I'm going to tell you another story. And this is a reason why security awareness training is so important, because this can happen when someone clicks on the wrong email. So meet one of my clients. This is St. Anthony Hospital in Chicago. In early 2020, before COVID shut the world down, and I mean right before, like a week before, I was on my way home from a music festival in Asheville, North Carolina, when I received a call from this client hospital. Well, they had been targeted with ransomware and they did not know what to do. They were in a total state of panic. They had to revert to manual processes to keep the hospital afloat. This incident significantly impacted hospital operations as it forced them to take systems offline, including their phone system, their email, and medical record systems. I mean, they were really handicapped. Well, the next morning, I was on a flight to Chicago to spearhead the recovery efforts. And when I got there, I realized just how ill equipped they were to defend against any type of cyber attacks, much less ransomware. For one, the CIO was on a cruise out of the country. The systems administrator was left in charge, but he had no authority to do anything. And honestly did not know if the incident response plan existed or the DR plan, if it existed or where it would be. There was no command center. The antivirus tool that they used had not been maintained. No one owned it. You had systems out there that had not been updated with their antivirus patterns for 2 years. Now, think of how many antivirus patterns come out in a week. Can you imagine how many they were missing for 2 years? We also found that the backups were also contained the same ransomware files on it as the servers that were encrypted. So they were of little use um, to do a direct restore from the backups. And like I said, there was no war room, or some people call it command center, but I like to use the word war room because I feel like we are really at war with these cyber criminals. My first day, I sat in a folding chair in a little unprotected computer room with my laptop physically in my lap until we commandeered a meeting room because I had staff coming in the next day to help with some of the restoration efforts. So moving forward, it took several days to get the most critical systems back to normal operation and weeks before the less critical ones were returned. But fortunately, they had cyber insurance that took control of the negotiations with the perpetrators. And I do believe in order to avoid any further patient impact, they ended up paying the ransom, even though personally I would always advise against it. Well, once the drama was over, we took the following actions. We conducted a security assessment, and from that we did a gap analysis and established a get well plan based on the gap analysis. Then we looked at and created an incident response plan and established endpoint protection or antivirus workflows with declared responsibility and accountability. That way, somebody owned it. Somebody would be watching that system and monitoring it and knowing when systems were not getting the antivirus pattern updates. We also looked at the backup policies and procedures and made sure that someone was periodically checking the backups to make sure that there was actually data on the tapes. We also made sure that there were off-site and offline copies of the backups. So it was tough to learn and tough to live through, but I learned a lot. I learned that healthcare organizations must do everything possible to avoid cyber attacks, especially ransomware, because the recovery can become excessively expensive. As a matter of fact, on February 21st of this year, Change Healthcare, a subsidiary of United Health Group, was the victim of the most significant and consequential cyber attack on the U.S. health system in American history. Now, Change Healthcare processes 15 billion transactions annually. And as you can imagine, that's a lot of people. 1 in 3 US citizens are impacted. So what do we know about it? Well, very expensive. Change Healthcare or United Health Group paid $22 million in the ransom in the form of payment in Bitcoin. Industry-wide, there was $1.6 billion lost due to the cyber attack. And also, there was a direct impact on patient care. And like I said, 1 in every 3 US citizens were affected. And unfortunately, there were personal financial risk. Physicians and their teams were facing possibilities of their clinics being closed because they couldn't make payroll. So they had to put their homes up for collateral. Now, according to the American Hospital Association, 74% of all hospitals reported a direct patient impact, and 94% of hospitals reported a financial impact, with more than half reporting significant or serious impact. So moving on to our next topic, how to fortify your digital environment without having to become a cybersecurity expert. So as you can see, IT and cybersecurity have many, many acronyms, which I call TLA. Now, TLA stands for, believe it or not, 3-letter acronyms. Well, there's also FLA. What is FLA, Jeff? It's not this, well, you mean the state of Florida? No, FLA is simply 4-letter acronyms. So many of them that I just want to show you this, and I'm not going to hurt your eyes with it, so we're going to go through it really fast. So got a page here of them, and we have a page here. Just so many to know that, I mean, really, do you really want to know these? And believe me, there are even more acronyms. But you know what? I get it. And don't worry, you don't need to know all of this. I came to an understanding early in my career that people often are intimidated by all the technical jargon that and acronyms used in information technology and cybersecurity. Too often the concepts are explained to them in condescending manner, and some practitioners have to be the smartest person in the room, and doing so is not a win for the profession. Well, you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. I came from a world of lots of jargon, but here's all you really need to know in order to be aware of cyber issues. There are 3 acronyms I want you to take away from this webinar today. You'll have some high level understanding of what they are: CIA, MFA, and VPN. So we'll start with CIA. So CIA, in this case, is not a 3-letter government agency. It's the 3 pillars of cybersecurity, often referred to as the triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality means ensuring that information is accessible only to those authorized to have access. Sure, let's simplify it by saying confidentiality means keeping information private and only letting the right people see it. Well, what's integrity, Jeff? Integrity means making sure the information is correct and nobody has changed it without permission. Well, what's availability? Availability is ensuring that authorized users have access to the information and associated assets when needed. So these are the pillars of information security. CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So now we'll move on to MFA. MFA stands for multi-factor authentication. Well, what do we mean by multi-factor authentication? That just sounds like more jargon, right? Well, yeah, it does. And um, so MFA is like having a special lock on your online accounts that needs more than one key to open. Imagine you have a treasure chest, and instead of just having one lock, you put 3 different locks on it to open it. You might need a key or a combination code or a fingerprint. So basically, your MFA is the 3 forms of knowledge, three things, 3 factors. Number 1 is something you know. What's something you know? It's your username, your password. What's something you have? Well, something you have is your phone with your code tapped in on it. When you go to your bank account on your computer and it says now send the code to your phone, you have to type it in to prove that it's really you that's logged in to your bank account. That's something you have. And then the third is something you are. Something you are could be your fingerprint, a palm scan, or it could even be a retina scan, a facial scan. If you've ever used Microsoft Hello, I mean, that's a facial scan. So MFA, multi-factor authentication. Okay, our third and final one we'll talk about is VPN, virtual private network. Well, Jeff, there you go again. That sounds like another acronym. What is VPN? Well, VPN is like a private tunnel for all of your internet activity. And it encrypts your online data, making it unreadable to anyone who might try to intercept it. So when you use a VPN, it's like sending your internet traffic through a hidden passage that only you have access to. So VPN is like a tunnel. So the reason I bring these last 2 acronyms up, the VPN in particular, if you're using a company computer or even your personal device in a public area, it's very important that you have this turned on your phone or on your computer, because that encrypts your information and prevents anyone from eavesdropping on your conversation. They, they won't be able to steal your account number or any type of messages that you're transmitting on your computer or phone. So that's VPN. In the same way with multi-factor, means that it's a better way of ensuring that you are really who you say you are. It's proving that that's you that's trying to log in and not somebody that's pretending to be you. So we'll move on now to our final topic, which is how to reduce the risk of cybersecurity threats without disrupting your daily operations. Well, the first way we do it is to review and develop cybersecurity policies. And these policies could be 1 policy, could be 10 policies, it could be 50 policies, depending on how detailed you need it to be. I mean, I would start with an acceptable use policy. I would also have password policies, a policy that says what people can and can't do with their company issued computers and their company data. You want to make sure that they're not downloading confidential information or patient information to their personal phones or their personal laptops or thumb drive. You need policies for that. So ask yourself, if your company experienced a cyber attack today, are you confident that your business could continue operating without significant downtime? How long will recovery take you? How much money would it cost? What kind of patient impact would it be? What is the perception of the client? What's your reputation going to look like? Well, your solution is the TheCyberWild Cybersecurity Solutions. We offer security awareness training, security assessments, and cybersecurity governance, risk, and compliance strategies. So for security awareness training, they can be customized for every client. They can be virtual, in person, or subscription based online. We can do phishing simulations and we can do tabletop exercises. For security and risk assessments, we have best practices against some of the most common frameworks in our industry. We can also help you with compliance readiness, for example, like HIPAA or PCI compliance. And we can also perform breach and attack simulations to see how well your systems can report when a breach or an attack is occurring. It's not real, but it would let you know how your systems are responding to it. So for government's risk and compliance strategies, we can help you with your policies. We can write them for you, or we can help revise them for you. We can catalog them for you. Also, we can help you with your incident response planning or your DR planning. And we can also help you with your safe artificial intelligence governance. So let's be honest. Do you really have the right resources to secure your infrastructure, to secure your company, or drive awareness in your organization so that not if, but when something happens, you have everything needed to defend your organization? Well, you don't have to do it alone. If you keep the status quo, you can continue everything you're doing right now and nothing changes. You basically remain at risk for these things to occur in your organization. Your clinic will remain vulnerable to significant financial losses, operational shutdowns, reputational damage, and irreparable damage to your patient trust. Your clinical and data and patient records will remain at risk of being exposed on the dark web. Keeping the status quo is dangerous. It's an invitation for disaster. So without proactive measures, your clinic is vulnerable to significant losses. But on the other hand, if you have the TheCyberWild, you can rest assured that your company's most valuable assets are well protected. Your team members will be more attentive in recognizing social engineering campaigns. Your organization's likelihood of surviving a cyber attack will be improved, and the risk of your personal finances will decrease. So who's in? Not everyone is a great fit for this offer, but if you're an organization who's serious about securing your crown jewels and really protecting your company from cyber threats, then you're a great candidate. If you really believe that equipping and preparing your company culture to do what it takes to make sure it's protected, then you're a great candidate. And you know what? Your company is worth it. Your company would benefit significantly from an additional layer of security awareness. When contemplating the well-being of your patients, staff, corporate culture, and the considerable time, energy, and resources invested in establishing your organization, failing to seize this opportunity poses significant risk. This aspect holds utmost importance for all healthcare organizations. So the key takeaways we talked about: why smaller organizations are more likely to be targeted with cyber attacks than large enterprises. We talked about how to fortify your digital tool environment without having to become a cybersecurity expert. and how to reduce the risk of cybersecurity threats without disrupting your daily operations. So, what are the next steps? Well, the next steps are to schedule a strategy call would be today. If you go to, and I'll drop this in the chat line below, www.calendly.com/TheCyberWild. So I've given you all this information and I've told you all about me, and I've brought to your attention how important it is to drive this information into your organization. So, are you ready to navigate the cyber wild, wild west? I hope you are, because there's a new cyber sheriff in town.